Hi, and welcome to BonBon Break Live. We are excited. I'm Val Curtis, the editor-in-chief at bonbonbreak.com, and I'm really excited to be here with you for Season 2 of BonBon Break Live today. We're excited to announce that as of last week, we are now available via podcast, and so you will be able to listen to this session in about a week in your car, in your earbuds, wherever you are. So it's a nice addition that we are offering to our viewers. Today we have 4 incredible women on our panel. Each has authored, illustrated, and or edited their own book or books in a couple of cases over this past year, and 3 have released books just this month. So please welcome Jessica Smock, the co-editor of the Her Stories project and her second anthology, My Other Ex, Women's True Stories of Loving and Leaving Friends. Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for being here. Also joining us via comments today, we had a little technical issue. We have Anna Whiston Donaldson, the author of the memoir Rare Bird, and the voice behind An Inch of Gray. So Anna's out there watching along, and we will be able to give her your questions. Joining us from the world of humor and illustration is J.C. Little, the source of entertainment behind The Animated Woman, and her books The Last Snowman and Motherhood. Hi, J.C.
Hi.
And last but most definitely not least, one of my favorites who just reached #1 on Amazon's Parenting and Humor list with her newest book, People I Want to Punch in the Throat. She is the editor to I Just Want to Pee Alone, and she'll have another book from Random House being, she also had I Just Want to Be Alone, and she'll have another book from Random House being re-released this Christmas. I'm happy to welcome Jen Mann.
Hello.
Hi. So I would love to just jump right into the questions. It was amazing taking this journey from blog to book. Questions were flooding in for you ladies. You each have incredible fan bases, and which is why your books have been successful, and as well as your blogs. So first of all, I'd like to ask each of you, what was the catalyst that kind of made you consider publishing as more than just a possibility? Jessica, could we start off with you?
Sure. We had a blog that was really me and my co-editor, Stephanie Springer, of Mommy for Real. We had a blog that was really just about very small, modest blog, just sharing women's stories of friendship. And we soon realized that we had so many that were so great that it would easily be a book. So it was really kind of a natural process for us, and we decided to self-publish. Yeah,
Right.
it was.
And your first book, what was the title of your first book?
Our first book was called The Her Stories Project, and it was a collection of anthologies about friendship in general and how friendship shapes women's lives. So it was a lot of essays that were received for the blog, and it was also ones that from bloggers that we invited. But it was all just about friendship.
I love it. And the next book that you came out with, My Other Ex, is fantastic. And I have to say I'm so impressed with the group of writers that you brought together, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment.
Thank you.
But going on to JC, so what was your catalyst that made you jump into publishing?
I think it was probably my Pinworms post when it got a lot of attention. How to check for pinworms got a lot of attention from Bodhi because I had to read it in front of thousands of people with drawings of pinworms, and I actually do have other pinworm stories, believe it or not. So I was thinking, I'll just jump on this and put them up on my blog, and then I was like, wait a second. If I have other stories, I could roll them into a book. And so I decided to do that, but I wanted to test the waters first with other books because I want pinworms to be done right. I want to do those
forever.
Pinworms.
There's life beyond pinworms. So, and so you have 2 books out so far. You have The Last Snowman and Motherhood, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And they're both picture books. All of my books will be picture books, mostly pictures.
Okay, and then Jen, what was your catalyst to jump in?
I think for me it was my readers. They were asking for a book after I went viral in December of 2011. I went viral with a post about the Elf on the Shelf, and so they were asking for a book and saying, I'd buy a book if you wrote a book, but I didn't know what to write about exactly. And a friend suggested I write a Christmas book, a collection of Christmas essays, and so that's how Spending the Holidays with People I Want to Punch in the Throat came about. And I chose to self-publish it because at that point I didn't have any contacts in New York. I didn't have an agent, and I didn't want to wait. I was afraid that my iron wouldn't be hot anymore if I waited another year. So I self-published it in the fall of 2012, and then that's the book that Random House has purchased, and it will be, I've added to it, and it'll be re-released next Christmas, not this Christmas, next Christmas.
So 2015.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to wait a whole another year for another book.
Yeah, but right now you can still get Suburban Scourges. You know, you can get the Competitive Crafters book right now. So go get that one and read that one first, and then you can wait for the holiday book.
We can make the comparisons when the new one comes out.
Exactly.
And so, Jessica, I have a question for you. So what are some of the advantages? You are unique in this group in that you published with a partner. You have a co-editor with you. What are some of the benefits to taking that route?
Well, first of all, you always have someone to bounce ideas off of. And just both of us have toddlers and small children, and given our schedules, you know, it just works out perfectly having another person to divide up the work and to figure out what to do next. I honestly can't even imagine having gone through this process without a partner, so I have no comparison. But yeah, it's worked out fantastically, and we just complement each other's skills so well. Because there is so much involved in the process of publishing and getting a book to market, and it just seems like where one of us is weak in one area, the other one can kind of take over, and it's worked out really well.
That's great. And so it's interesting with each of you. You have different niches in the market.
Exactly, and that's worked out really well too. I think that we have different, I mean, obviously there's a lot of overlap, and we came from kind of the same blog communities, but we do appeal to different sorts of writers and to different sorts of readers. But it's all about women's voices and stories, so there is always going to be some commonality.
Yeah, and so another thing that I'm interested too from JC and Jen as well is as you were jumping into the process of writing a book, there has to be a bit that's a little altruistic as you're going in with some altruistic intentions. But did you do any research? And let's just go JC first. Did you do any research to see what was hot on the market in your genre before you jumped into it, or did you just kind of go in knowing where you wanted to fit in?
Yeah, I didn't really do research to see where my competition was because, or I don't know, I always fall through the cracks. So I'm always in between audiences and targets. So I discovered long ago that I really have to focus on what I do and just do what I do rather than trying to fit any, where am I going to fit on the bookshelf? Like if you look at either one of my first two books, they could easily go into, being a mom, books about motherhood and being a mother and being a new mom and all that stuff, or in the children's bookshelf, under 6 or right up to grade 3, I guess. So I don't know. I didn't really do that, but I did a lot of research on the marketing and the whole technical side of it, because it's really not that straightforward. It wasn't at the time anyway. This was about a year ago when I was trying to do it, about getting picture books out onto devices. So yeah, I did a lot of research.
And so what about for you, Jen?
I kind of like JC too, that I write what I write. I know what my strengths are, and I'm a square peg in a round hole, I guess. I mean, I knew obviously it would be humor because that's mostly what I write. I looked at what was out there as far as humor, but I didn't really think I didn't try to emulate anybody or anything like that. I just tried to be myself and write what I write. And then I'm like her too, that I did a lot of research just on the self-publishing side of it and figuring out how to make a good product. And because for me, it's content. I think that's the best marketing you can have, is have a good book and have good content. And so I wanted it to look professional, and I wanted it to feel like a good book and to read like a good book. So that's where I did most of my research too.
And Jen and Jessica, you both have anthologies, which is, I mean, not just your voice, you're bringing in others' voices as well. And I mean, I've spoken, I believe, with both of you that there are a lot of anthologies out there now. And so how could you get yours to stand out in the crowd?
Well, for us, it definitely helped being, you know, the parenting niche is pretty big, very big. And parenting memoir pieces are very, you know, there's just a lot of them out there. So we had a very specific niche that we, you know, the other people talked about researching their niche. And we did a lot of research in what's been written out there about friendship and about, you know, women's friendships. And we did feel like there was a niche that was out there to be filled. And we made a lot of connections with people writing about friendship. And so, you know, we just felt that what we were writing about was really unique. If there wasn't a book out there like it, we felt pretty good about being able to, you know, make our book a little different.
Well, and one thing that I've heard going through is that I've heard people say, you know, see what's selling. But in reality, what's hot now is not necessarily going to be hot by the time your book comes out.
Yeah, and it probably means that a lot of other people are trying to copy it.
That's a good point. That's a really, really good point. So what is important for authors, potential authors, to know the difference between developmental editing, copy editing, and proofreading? Anyone want to jump in on that? Because those are three really different.
I'll take that one. I think, well, with developmental editing, you need someone who'll go through and sort of find the holes and find what's missing, or find if you're repetitive, if you've got too much of one thing or another. And so your developmental editor really helps you kind of form the whole book and get the book as a cohesive, especially with an anthology, you know, to get it as a cohesive book. And then with the editor, then that's the person who kind of goes through, the line editor goes through and makes sure all your grammar is right, and make sure that you've got your tenses are matching, because that's my problem a lot, and telling me that I have too many exclamation points and that shitballs is not a word, but and so then you have like the whole proofreader, who that's the person who hopefully finds typos and finds you know, different layout problems and that sort of thing.
And so for each of you, I mean, Jen, you've done this through self-publishing as well as going through with Random House. And
yeah.
So, and for each of you, with self-publishing, did you do this on your own, or did you hire out?
We hired out. Yeah, we hired out. The first time, our first book, we really underestimated the amount of editing that needs to go into a book. And we figured that a lot of the posts and a lot of the essays that we had were either published in other places or they were from people's blogs. So we took for granted that they would be at a certain level. And it was, you know, it was a big learning process for us, the first book. And we really underestimated the amount of time that it took to go through the editing process. So the next time we made sure that a real developmental editing process, and then we went through copy editing and the proofreading. It's just a step. I think it happens all the time with self-publishing. You think that because you're a writer, you're good at grammar and you can spot your own flaws in your writing, and you know yourself, and you read a lot, that you can do it yourself, and you really, really can't. After a certain point, you've looked at the writing so much, even if it's other people's writing, it becomes almost yours. And you really need several pairs of eyes to go over the writing.
JC, what
And
did
you're
you do?
still going to find things.
Yeah, always, I'm sure, even after print, right?
Yeah.
JC, what about for you with the editing piece?
Well, I had to edit both on the image side and on the text side. Both of my books that are already out are stories that started as blog posts. So I use them as skeletons, pretty much, and embellish them and put backstory in, and concluded everything by filling it out with more drawing. So I think in that sense the pictures were less editing and more adding to or plumping out. So putting flesh on the bones and then clothes. And for the text, I did find it useful. But for the whole piece, I did find it useful to show it to a couple of people. And part of my family works in publishing. Not picture books, unfortunately, but they were able to help me out with some guidance, and it was really good, very good. And I used some of my readers too in a closed group. So
that's nice. I think that's one of the benefits of blogging is that you do have an immediate audience, not only with your readers, but with fellow bloggers who, one of the best pieces is the community that is behind blogging, the behind the scenes of what the readers see. It's incredibly helpful. Everybody is exceptional.
Actually, the people that I showed it to were not bloggers. They were just fans who had become friends through Facebook. So originally they were fans. So I didn't actually show it to any other bloggers, really. I can remember. So, oops. I'll do that next time.
Well, it's interesting. I get a lot sent to me. Like, can you just read this over? Can you put your eyes across this? And I'm sure as each of you develop over time, that happens to you as well. And it's hard because you do want to read everything, but you can't always, especially if it needs editing. Tammy Soong from Blogging Betties wanted to know, for those who self-publish, when did you know it was the right time to pull the trigger if you didn't have an editor from a publishing house to work with who is telling you, yes, now everything is all good?
It's never all good. You'll always find something. Even my newest book from Random House, somebody tweeted me a picture the other day of a typo in it. So you'll find things just go through the cracks. But I think that as far as if the content is ready, though, and if you're ready to get that content out, you'll know if it's something that you want to share and it's something that you want to write, then you're ready. Just write it. That's the beauty of self-publishing. There's no one to tell you yes or no. And so if you think it's an important story to put out there and you're ready to put it out there, put it out there. The worst that's going to happen is that no one's going to know it exists, but at least you did it and you tried it.
And then for you, JC, with your picture books, how did you know it was time? I remember us having conversations actually before motherhood, and before you brought motherhood out, and you were like,
Yeah, I think it's kind of like when someone asks you, well, when you're going to have a baby, how do you know you're ready to have a baby? Well, you're never actually really ready. You might think you are, but you're never really ready. Because when the baby is born, it screams and wants to be fed, and you realize, oh my God, I have to feed this baby for the rest of my life. It's kind of the same for a book. You gestate this book for, it could be years, right? And then you finally give birth to it, and are you ready? I don't know. I don't know if I was ready. I certainly didn't do everything right by the book. By the book, yeah.
Pun fully intended.
2/3 of a pun. P.U. That was just for you, Tammy. Yeah, good question. I don't know. It'll come to you in a dream. You'll just wake up and you'll just one day. There's no magic sign. I don't know. You just want to.
Did any of you enlist family to look
Yeah.
over things?
My husband reads everything, so he always is good to help me. And then I have a sister-in-law who's like a proofreader who always likes to look stuff over for me too.
Oh, nice.
And is always good to help me out.
That's a nice family member to have right there.
It is. She's good.
So here's my question. Oh, go ahead, JC. Sorry.
Yeah, I definitely use my family, and they're pretty vocal, especially my kids. And I always get their approval on all the drawings I do of them before they go on my blog or in the book or anything, you know.
Well, the last snowman was about your daughter. I mean,
yeah, my daughter and my son was included in there a little bit, kind of a backstory, but yeah, it was really super meaningful for her. And when she saw the book, she knows the story, right? She's been on my blog and everything, and when she saw the book and opened it and had it in her hands, she cried. She got to the part where, you know, the snowman fell on her, and she was like, that was so sad. She actually teared up and cried. It was really sweet. So yeah, I mean, and they'll tell me when something's not working, and sometimes I'll agree, but they're valuable. Family and friends, good.
So when you're going through the process of putting your book together, I mean, obviously you have your family, you have your friends who you're bringing in to help you, but there is some money that needs to be spent as well as you're going through this process. So for people who are interested in publishing out there, if they are on a tight budget, what would each of you suggest is the place to spend the money? Let's go ahead and start with you, Jessica.
Well, definitely, as we talked about, the editing. Don't skimp on the editing process. Hire a good editor, and cover design. Those were really the biggest areas that we spent our money. We had a lot of our ideas about the cover, but we really wanted it to look professional and not in any way like a self-published book. So we definitely hired professionals for that. And I would say that's the sure giveaway that your book is self-published if you have a really amateur-looking cover. So those two places would be places that I would say never, ever, go cheap on.
Okay, and for you, Jen?
I would agree. I think cover is most important. I think editing you can probably get away with hiring either friends or going through several more eyes, but the cover I think is really, really important because even though we judge a book by its cover, so I think you've got to have a really good cover and it's really got to convey what's there because it's got to stand out in a sea of millions of covers on Amazon and iTunes and everything. And then I think too the layout. Layout can be very difficult to do on your own and it can look pretty unprofessional if it's done wrong, and so I think if you need to hire someone for layout.
That's great advice. And JC, what about for you with the picture book?
Right. So because I'm a commercial artist, I didn't actually hire out any of that, but I did get other people to give me their comments on it. But that's not where I spent my money. However, I would say that if you don't have the skills, you should definitely hire out for any of those parts. If you don't have the skills to get it where it needs to be, you should definitely spend money on the content, the images, the layout, the editing, all of those things to give it the professional sheen. But where I spent my money was in the marketing. I spent a little bit. I had a small budget, so because that's not where my area of expertise is. I hate doing it. Except for the talking to people and
Well, and it sounds like for each of you, you really had to kind of do some self-indexing and saying, these are my strengths, these are things that I feel I can pull off on my own.
Definitely. I think you have to, it's like JC said, you have to play to your strengths. I mean, I could never do any of the graphics or,
or maybe one thing for instance there.
So I think you have to play to your strengths. and hire out what you are not good at.
Definitely. Definitely. Did I cut out there a little bit just for a second?
A little bit.
So, and so kind of the flip side of this, where would you tell people to save money? Think about that one for a second. Where would you tell them to kind of, I mean, in starting BonBon Break, there are so many things I learned via YouTube and getting things going and talking to peers who were very receptive to helping us grow. But where are some areas that you think people who are going through this journey can kind of, where can they save money? So go ahead, Jessica.
For our first book, we spent a lot. One of the biggest areas of our budget was buying review copies. We spent a lot of money on paperbacks to give to anybody who would review it. We figured the more people who get eyes on the book, the better. And that ended up being a huge expense. So this time we made sure to have the book up on NetGalley and to have really, to have files early, ebook files, and just to gift Kindle books. And we basically just decided not to give paperbacks to anybody who would ask or that we asked. So that was actually a surprisingly large portion of our budget the first time that we really cut down the second time.
That's great advice. And
just in general, really, because you could spend a ton of money on getting your book reviewed or to spend money promoting it. There are all sorts of companies out there that do it. And, ask around and ask which ones work because they're not all going to work for your type of book. There are a lot of ones that for our niche, which about friendship and kind of a literary anthology, they're not going to work in the same way that they would for a horror book or So really spend the time before you put down money to market a book with a company. Really get to know the types of writers that they work with.
That's really good advice. And Jen, where would you tell new aspiring writers to save some money?
The thing is, it's an investment, and you have to think of it that way. That if you're really at the point where you're ready to put a book out and you think that this is what you want to do, it's an investment in your career and your future. And I think I do agree with Jessica on the marketing side of it. I'm not sure, for P Alone, I Just Want to Pee Alone, for that anthology, I gave out tons and tons and tons of copies of that book. And it cost me a few dollars a piece. And we got so many nice reviews and so much play on that book. And then when it was time for I Just Want to Be Alone, I went digital because I thought, that was a big expense to mail all those and to send them out. And I went digital, and we didn't get near the response with reviews. And so I wonder if there's not a connection there. Next time, believe me, I'll be sending out real live copies, and we'll see. But I would not advertise, I wouldn't pay to advertise on Goodreads. I think you do giveaways on Goodreads, and those work really well. But probably advertising, I think she's right. Like, I would never hire a PR rep, and I would never hire a marketing company or anything like that. There's tons of ideas out there for guerrilla marketing and how to use social media to market and to let the Amazon and the Goodreads machines work for you, and I would do that.
Okay, great advice. And go ahead, JC.
Yeah, I think the first book I did, I was nervous and I didn't know the whole, blog tour thing. So I hired a friend who knew what to help me out with that. And I wouldn't say that it was a lot of money because she knew what she was doing and I didn't. But I think watching her do it gave me confidence the second time around. But I agree that with Jen, that hard copy books are worth a lot more to review bloggers. They like to hold it in their hands and for contests and stuff like that. Where I wouldn't spend money again, and where I didn't the second time around, is in giving prizes out. Like I gave out mugs with an image from the book, and I got lots of sponsors on board. Well, the sponsors were great, and they helped fluff out the prize packages, and they helped get the word out a little bit. But in terms of effort and return on effort, I don't know if it showed in the sales so much. So I don't know. I think just sticking to product like the book and spending is a good idea.
That's great feedback. That's really great feedback. So, Jen, this was a question for you, and it was also another question for Anna. So, Anna, if you can send us the response to this. Where did you have to release a little control in the process by working with a publisher?
Everywhere. No, I joke. I'm such a control freak, so that's not really a fair question or a fair answer. Poor Random House. The book is very much mine. I'm very pleased with the content in the book. I was very worried early on that they would try to change my voice or make me different. And so the content is very much me. We cut a few essays out of it that didn't work, that my publisher thought didn't work, that I felt were okay to work, but I trusted her judgment. But there would have been a few other different ones in there. The cover was a compromise. It wasn't quite what I wanted. It wasn't quite what they wanted. So I guess, win-win. Everybody's a little not thrilled. But you give up a lot, though. You give up. The real control is right now, though, because when you're self-published, you know how many books you're selling at all times. I can look online right now and tell you how many I Just Want to Pee Alone books sold today. And that's the really, really hard part with this, is not knowing where I stand and where I rank. It's also very hard not to reach out to publications to review the book. When I'm self-published, I'm always looking for places to review the book and to talk about the book. And Random House keeps saying, you have a team now to do this. You have a team. We'll do it. And so then my question is, well, what's happening? Is it done? Are we doing it? So that's the hard part.
And I think that might be one of the things in working for yourself, so to speak, versus working with a publishing house, is the immediacy. Because if you want something done, you get on it. And you're like, if I want to get 4 more people on board to give reviews by tomorrow, I'm going to get that done.
Right.
And so putting that into someone else's hands, I could see how that would be tricky. I actually have a response here from Anna. She said, let's see. Traditional publishing. Oh, wait, I just lost it. Here it is. Another thing is you may not have that much control over cover or even the title. We had a lot of discussions over the title of Rare Bird before the publisher was completely on board with it. She said, as far as editing goes, I was nervous about it, but I also was looking forward because I wanted the pros to have a look at what I wrote before it was out in the world. That said, the editing of Rare Bird was minimal, with the exception of having me add a few details about my husband and marriage and drop a few short chapters that felt undeveloped. I had help from a developmental editor along the way, and I think that helped get it into a much more polished state when I turned in the draft. So she said, and she also, with promotion-wise, she said whether self-publishing or traditional publishing, you'll need to do a lot of promotion yourself to keep your village informed of what you are doing with the book.
Definitely.
So at what point did you let your readers know that something was coming? Was there a date that you had decided with, Jessica, in your case, with your partner, in your case, Jen, with the publishing house? Was there a date that they said, now you can talk about this? And then JC, what part in your process did you feel that you could start letting your readers know that something was coming down the pike? Jen, why don't you go ahead and start?
I think I started talking about it as soon as I signed the contract. I signed the contract like a year and a half ago, and at that point I had the idea of what I wanted to write about. And then just throughout, I would say, because I would just sort of keep people updated, I'm working on this today, and I'm not around because I'm working on my new book, and then it wasn't until probably about 2 or 3 months, probably 2 months or a month and a half before the publication, that's when I changed all my banners and everything on my Facebook to say it's coming with a date. The publisher picked the date. When I self-publish, I pick a date, and that's kind of my deadline that I know I got to get it done by. But with this, they had already picked the date for me, so I knew what date it was, and so I changed all the banners and let them know. And at that point, the pre-orders were available, so I would start sending everyone towards pre-order if they wanted to do that or to get ready. And then the week before was when I really ratcheted up and just started every day. I think I wrote a post that said, like, I'm going to annoy the crap out of you. Just get ready. I'm going to talk about this all the time. So,
get ready, here it comes.
Get ready. You might as well unlike me now because it's going to get bad.
Jessica, what was your plan of action there?
Well, ours was determined by other things. We, as soon as the first book came out, we knew right away that the section of the book that was attracting the most attention and that people thought was the most fascinating was the section on friendship breakups. So we knew right away that we wanted to explore that area more deeply. And then, so we started, and then we wanted to do a kind of a different sort of process this time rather than inviting people and just picking blog posts ourselves. We wanted to have a submission process. And then the deadline ended up being determined by, I'm pregnant now. So basically our deadline ended up, we wanted to have it done before my due date. So we kind of worked backwards. So, in truth, it was probably a little faster than what we ideally would have wanted, but I didn't want to be promoting a book and having the publication at the same time as giving birth. So
two births at once.
Yes, it is kind of like two births at once.
There's actually, when this summary up for the post, JC knows where I'm going with this. She has this brilliant graphic that she wrote that's part of a post when she was talking about that her book was ready. That is someone giving birth to a book.
Yeah.
It says, it's here.
Lots of similarities, yeah.
Oh, go. I was going to say, JC. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jess. Did you want to add something else in?
Nope.
Okay. JC, for you, when did you start letting your audience know that the book was coming?
So the first book, I think I followed a similar pattern to Jen. As soon as I knew I was doing the book, and I knew that it was viable, that I could do it, I started saying I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and then it wasn't until a week before it was out that I really ramped it up. One mistake that I made with The Last Snowman, which was my first book, is I wanted it to come out the beginning of December at the latest, because I wanted to get that Christmas, the Christmas window. I just got in there for the Kindle version because you can get that instantly. But what I didn't realize is that with the CreateSpace, Amazon's print-on-demand approval process, is they actually take up to a week to make your book available for print. So that kind of really hurt me in terms of the sales. So get everything ready, decide to make your book well in advance of Christmas, not in like the beginning of November like I did. And for motherhood, I knew by then that what was going to happen, so I wanted to get it ready for Mother's Day. So I had it done, several months before, and was able to market it properly accordingly. So think about that, guys.
Yeah, those seasonal definitely hit before the season, or be ready way before the season. And so it's interesting because each of you have the ebook version, and you've hit on this a little bit of going ebook or print first, because I know that there are quite a few bloggers who put out an ebook first to kind of just test the waters. And there's a lot of conversation out there about, the way to start earning income through your site is to get an ebook out there. But as we all know, there is a lot of variability in ebooks. How did you decide? I mean, I know, JC, you had to go with just your ebook version first by default of the delivery. But do you have any advice for people on whether to go ebook first or to make that jump into print at the same time?
I think I think that, especially with the picture book, people like to hold a book in their hands, especially with a picture book. So if they're going to be buying a picture book as a gift, you're going to want to have that print book. It's a bit more complicated to set a book up for print. But with print on demand, especially with the big space, they do hold your hand. There's a lot of documentation resources to support you in doing it. So I would say do both, and probably the print version is a little more important.
Okay. And what do you think, Jen?
I did them both at the same time. I did ebook and print all at the same time. I think JC's right. It is harder to lay out the print version of the book. The ebook is a very easy upload process, but the print version takes a lot more work. I felt like it was important, though, to have both choices. At that point, when I released my first book, I did not have an e-reader, and I did not read on an e-reader. I'm a book person. I'm a book huffer. I like to smell books. And so I just didn't even think about it. I just was like, we will do a book. But as far as sales go, it's 2-to-1 for me for my books, for the way they sell. But I think that tells me that a lot of people still find print books important. That there's still a lot of readers out there print books. So I think it's worth it. But maybe, and as far as like testing the waters, I don't know. You have one shot to sort of get the word out about your book. And if you don't have all the versions available, I know when I did my Christmas book, I was kind of like JC. I got stuck on the Barnes & Noble review process to get it up on Nook. And I had so many people at those first couple weeks emailing me asking me, when's Nook coming? When's Nook coming? And then by the time it came, I'm not sure that all of them really went and got it. You kind of missed that wave. So that's, to me, why I would do it all at one time. If you can get all the, and that's the other thing, too. It's not just ebook and it's not just Amazon. 25% of my sales are through iTunes Store, so through the iBook Store. Smashwords is a really good place to get it up and disseminate it to every place else that you want to get it to, because there's a lot of there's readers I'd never heard of, Kobo readers. I mean, there's things I've never heard of that people own and want to read on, and so it doesn't take that much work to get it up, but I try to have it on every platform possible.
I think that's really great advice because you have the different areas that you're familiar with to go for reading. Like you said, you were a print person. You like to smell books. I get that, and I have a book problem. So I always have tons and tons of books, but I also have an e-reader for travel because it's really easy and it's the portability is helpful. But it's interesting to think about that because by default, you think of the Nook and you think of the Kindle, but there are so many different readers out there. And especially within the different niches, too, that some of them specialize in those different areas. So I think that's really valuable advice for everyone to be ready across the board.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the new hot thing, I just went to a conference last week on publishing, and the new thing is audiobooks. And everybody's doing audiobooks. And those are quite expensive, I guess several $1,000s to put together. But they're selling like hotcakes. So it's on. That's my new research project is to figure out do I want to sit in my closet with a microphone and read this book. We'll see. I don't know.
Or will they have someone else? So that's something to think about as you have your books out there. Is do you want to have your voice on there, or is a publishing house going to want someone else's voice in there who's trained to do that? I mean, because that's a lot. I would imagine that's a long process to get the book out correctly.
I've heard several, I think 12 hours for every 1 hour you listen to or something weird like that. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so, yeah, that might be one place where I might not skimp, and I might actually have to hire someone for that rather than hearing this voice for 12 hours.
I could listen to you forever. It's so good. But and I think part of me wonders in the audiobook line. I mean, it's partially why we've added in the podcast. Podcasts are big right now. People like to listen to things in their cars. A lot of people spend a lot of time traveling, whether it's in their car or whether
Did we just lose Val?
I think we did.
No!
Oh no.
Okay, now I'm going to sing a song.
What?
Is
Shoot. I don't know if she's coming back, everybody. This might be the end of our this might be the end of our presentation. Wow.
Are we still live?
I
Yes,
believe.
I think so.
Oh, it still says live. Okay, well, does anyone want to continue with the question while we fill this awkward silence until Val gets...
Are any of you guys considering doing an audiobook?
We've actually coincidentally had a couple requests for people want to hear each of the women read the stories of their breakups. So it's something we can maybe, I don't think we're ambitious enough to do an audiobook, but maybe we'll do like podcasts or something like that.
We're thinking like a YouTube or something like that. Have everybody upload theirs to YouTube or something like that where you could watch them.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a great idea. It is a lot of people. 35 is.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, I wonder, I really wonder where all of the cost for an audiobook is coming, because we have, well, I'm an animator and we have a little audio studio in-house, because with technology now you can do that, right? You can actually make a whole TV series in your living room or in your little home studio. So it's really just a matter of recording the voice. So I don't know where maybe hiring talent. I mean, for picture book, really the next thing would be for me is to go to animation. So, or a video book, where you turn the page and you get one image after the next with a voice reading it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really easy to do for me, because.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I think the audiobook is something definitely to look into. I really don't know much about it yet, but I'm with you, Jessica. I've had several people ask to hear the different essays read out loud. So I don't know, kind of like a listen to your mother / book or something.
Yeah.
Hard to know.
Yes.
Has Random House brought it up with you at all?
I'm sorry?
Has Random House brought it up with you, the possibility of doing an audiobook?
Actually, yeah. Honestly, they did yesterday. They presented me, and it wasn't. I passed. I decided to keep the audio rights to myself. I'm considered hybrid at this point, so I have self-published and I have traditionally published stuff, and so I'm kind of picking and choosing which rights to keep to myself and put out on my own. And so I decided to keep the audio. The offer that was presented was not. It wasn't what I wanted, so I'm going to keep that and try it myself.
Good for you.
Yeah, we'll see.
Or maybe not.
What's the worst that can happen, So, and then I've kept the international rights, too, so I'm trying to decide what to do with that. I've had a lot of requests from, like, Australia and England and Germany to put it up, so I might put it up. I don't know. We'll see.
Wow.
Yeah. The Wild West, It's the fun of being a hybrid.
Yeah. So who has a new book coming out?
Well, ours came out last week.
I mean, I'm talking about next book.
Oh.
Do you have anything planned for the future?
I've got more
We have
anthology.
another anthology planned for on postpartum depression next spring.
Oh.
And I have an anthology, or maybe two, I haven't decided yet, for the spring as well.
And what is the best months to launch a book in the spring? Like May, April? Is there a magic date?
I like March. It gives me enough time to sort of build up the momentum before Mother's Day. People tend to like to buy my anthologies for Mother's Day. So
Yeah.
I like March for anthologies, and then I like October for my stuff. What about for picture books? When's a good time for that?
Yeah, anything around gift giving, probably. My next book is going to be a collection of drawings I did in Draw Something with a character I invented called Pickle Weasel. So a series of books for Pickle Weasel because I already have all the content, and there's a small but devoted Pickle Weasel fan base. I'm going to try to get that out for Christmas.
So do you do a lot of content that's already been on your blog then, or are you doing like original content in your books?
No, these are going to be original. It's only about, I guess, about 1% of these drawings have been on my blog. So this is all new, but I think some of the ideas, yeah, definitely come from there. Yeah, definitely. It's a really good testing ground for what works and what resonates, right? So definitely.
Yeah. Jessica, on your anthologies, you guys do previously printed material, previously published on the blog, or do you do original?
Not on our blog anymore, but we've published a couple things. It's kind of a case-by-case basis. Depends on where it was. I think from this book right now, My Other X, maybe 2 were previously published. So in general, it's original material, but we've made a couple exceptions.
Yeah. And do you guys pay your contributors?
We have not so far. We have done. We've had affiliates.
What is
our
that? How does the affiliates work? What does that mean?
Well, this time we had a pre-sale of the books. We through our website. We for a couple months we made it possible so people could pre-order the book, and the contributors marketed that, and they earned a portion of the profits from that.
Okay.
But we're always looking for ways to it's a big expense for us starting out. The contributors. I'm definitely interested to hear how you, like just starting out, decided on how and when and how much you were going to pay your contributors.
For me, it was because I'd been in a previous anthology, and they had paid me, so I just thought that was how it was done. I didn't think it was any other way. And so they had paid me, and so I just thought, okay, well, I'll just pay my contributors. And then, but I did a bonus structure though, because I felt like once I got paid, I didn't have a lot of